Good evening and welcome to Election Playbook. My name is Rudo Gunduza. The election season is upon us and the President made a proclamation today that elections will be held on the 30th of July. That's in exactly 2 months' time. Now, we want to look at the landscape of the Zimbabwean election. And in the studio with me tonight, I have two gentlemen, Acie, Lumumba and Patson, Dzamara. We will be looking at the forerunners, the main players, the main political parties, and we want to hear from these two gentlemen what their take is. Good evening, gentlemen, and welcome.
Hey, here we are. It's game on.
Good evening.
Now, Zimbabweans want to know what this election means. We'll start with you, Acie. What does this election mean for President Emmerson Mnangagwa?
So let me break it down for you, okay? President Emmerson Mnangagwa is the only person who could have announced the date that these elections were going to take place. He did that today. Now, you're not talking about a man who doesn't know what he's doing. If he announces a date, he's ready. President Emmerson Mnangagwa is ready. So the announcement of the proclamation is President Emmerson Mnangagwa letting the country know that I'm ready. So what does this mean for President Emmerson Mnangagwa? Remember, of everything happening in President Emmerson Mnangagwa's life, his whole presidency, he has one boogeyman. Only one boogie issue. The boogie issue President Mnangagwa has is the issue of legitimacy. He needs legitimacy. So, what happens now is in the next 60 days, President Mnangagwa realizes the game is open, his team is strong, the party is reunited. Today they had a meeting to bring together all the losing contestants of the primary elections. The machine is ready. Last week you saw them with the war veterans. The machine is ready. The investors are ready. Whatever you use to judge the preparedness of a candidate, he's got it. Not only does he have it, he has it more than anybody else in the opposition. I dare on to say, there is not one candidate right now who is able to beat him right now. Under the current circumstances, President Emmerson Mnangagwa should be feeling good. He's announced the date. He gives himself 60 days. ZANU-PF is ready to roll. The machinery of the ZANU-PF campaign is about to be unleashed. Understand, this is a game Emmerson Mnangagwa knows well. It's not a game, he's a newcomer to. People keep giving reference to say, oh, but what is his experience in running campaigns? I'll tell you his experience. He's got experience of taking over a country. He's got experience of running ministries. And he's got experience of getting rid of President Robert Mugabe. What does this mean for him? It means now he can solidify himself and have the legitimacy he so desperately needs to run the country.
Now, there are no prizes for guessing that the two gentlemen in the studio, Acie, Lumumba and Patson, Dzamara, are from two opposing views. Patson, Dzamara, we want to hear from you. What do you think this election date means for President Emmerson Mnangagwa?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's critical for us to debunk the fact that Emmerson Mnangagwa has pretty much announced the day he's actually going to retire from active politics, because on the 30th of July 2018, a new leader is going to emerge, and that leader is none other than Nelson Chamisa. This does not in any way imply or connote the fact that Emmerson Mnangagwa is prepared. He is simply abiding by what the Constitution dictates. And so this election, I'm sure if he had his way, we've read in some instances that Emmerson Mnangagwa would have loved for the elections to happen at a later date. So in him proclaiming that the election is happening on the 30th of July 2008, he's essentially just abiding by what the Constitution says. It doesn't at all in any way mean that he is ready and he knows that he's going to win, because we know that Nelson Chamisa is the only game in town. Everyone is talking about Nelson Chamisa. Everywhere we go, people are talking about the young, energetic Nelson Chamisa who took over power after the demise of President Morgan Tsvangirai this year. Not only that, it is also important to understand that ZANU-PF is actually in a precarious position. ZANU-PF has never been weaker than this. ZANU-PF is grappling with factions, those within and those without. And that essentially puts Emmerson Mnangagwa's desire to win the election in disarray.
My brother Patson, my brother. Here is where the whole argument falls apart, okay? Let me help you understand where the argument you have just presented falls apart. Now maybe you just didn't understand the question. The question was, what does it mean for Emmerson Mnangagwa, not what does it mean for Chamisa, okay? We can deal with what it means for Chamisa later. What it means for Emmerson Mnangagwa, when you go into an election, there are certain pit points that you check if you have in line, okay? Number one, you ask yourself the fundamental question anywhere in the world: do you have the money to finance the machinery that reaches the people you need to reach? So does Emmerson Mnangagwa, the president, have the money for the election? Yes. Does he have it more than any other candidate? Yes. Does he have enough money to get to anywhere he wants in the country and be able to use money in politics? Yes. The second pillar you must consider is, do you have the key endorsements from the key pillars of any country? Now, these key endorsements could range from the church to the private sector to the people of the country. So, does President Emmerson Mnangagwa have the key endorsements? Look at the rallies, both political parties, if we're talking about Chamisa or any other political party, look at the rallies they have been doing. Before he announced the date, the man went out. You know, when we were kids, would go out into the, and you wanted to know what the weather was like. Emmerson Mnangagwa akatesta mepo. He did this when he went for his Manicaland rallies. And why Manicaland particularly? Because there is not one province that is actually going to be as key a game changer as Manicaland. So yes, there's provinces is not strong yet, but when you talk of Manicaland is the actual game changer in this election. Emmerson Mnangagwa worked on wooing Manicaland, and that's how he litmus tested himself, that he's ready as far as the people is concerned. I'm not even going to talk about the business community. We all know Britain is now engaging in Zimbabwe. Commonwealth is now engaging in Zimbabwe. The business community wants stability. President Emmerson Mnangagwa gives them that. So how do I think he feels about it? I think he's pumped up. He's the front runner in this race.
Yeah, to respond to what Lumumba has raised, it's very critical for us to understand the dynamics at play. First and foremost, I do not think that you can woo anyone who is in dire poverty by flaunting money. And so when you're talking about money, yes, we know Emmerson Mnangagwa and crew, they have been looting and pillaging the resources of the country since 1980. And so that is a known fact that as far as resources are concerned, as far as their war chest is concerned, yes, they have their game together. But it's not about that. After all is said and done, it's about the people of Zimbabwe, the general populace in Zimbabwe, of Zimbabwe, who have had to bear the brand of leadership failure, corruption, and the misdemeanor of Emmerson Mnangagwa and his colleagues for the past 38 years. And so when you're talking about money, it's really an insult for Emmerson Mnangagwa to flaunt resources the way they are doing. We see billboards everywhere in town. It's actually an insult to Zimbabweans who are suffering. And not only that, I think going forward, you're talking about Manicaland. He actually failed to fill the stadium in Mutare. And so that was not in any way a demonstration of power on the part of Emmerson Mnangagwa. It in fact showed that things are not well in paradise. It in fact revealed that ZANU-PF is at its weakest point ever. If you had to juxtapose that rally with end to the one which Robert Mugabe held, it should have been in 2013. I'm sure you're able then to attest to the fact that indeed it's not at all well in paradise.
Now, I'm not a spokesperson for Emmerson Mnangagwa. Neither am I a spokesperson for ZANU-PF. But I know a little bit about politics, and let me tell you this. Maybe Patson, my brother, does not understand. Everywhere in the world, money matters in politics, okay? Money perhaps is the single most important thing that determines a candidate's chance in politics. There is many candidates who sell great messages, but this is what money does for you. Money, number one, allows you to reach the people you want to talk to because it buys you a bigger microphone. You can ask any candidate who is in the campaign trail right now. They will tell you the importance of money. Secondly, money allows you to package your message because you can package your message in any language. You can do it in print. You can do it in digital. You can do it even through food because remember, people vote for different reasons. Maybe my brother doesn't understand. People vote for different reasons. Now, us, we might like to think we're the elite and in Harare and we like to read fancy manifestos, but out in the rural areas, I don't know people who vote for manifestos. I don't know people who've ever read any of the manifestos of any political party. People vote because they got what they wanted to vote for. Now, sometimes what they want to vote for is land. Sometimes it's education, sometimes it's money, sometimes it's food. It's the name of the game, it's not fair.
Lumumba, what you need to understand is this. Zimbabwean people are not foolish. They are not stupid. As such, they are not going to fall for these gimmicks. They are hungry. And of course, if Emmerson Mnangagwa comes with food, they are going to take the food. But that does not culminate into them voting for one person they know was instrumental in pillaging their future, in pillaging their livelihoods. And so let's be clear about that. Yes, we agree. Even when you're talking about the missing 15 billion, we know how Emmerson Mnangagwa is involved. We know how one Chiwenga is involved in that whole thing. So they have the money, they have all the money they need to do whatever they want to do. But that is certainly not going to hoodwink Zimbabweans into voting for them, because where were they all this time? When Zimbabweans were suffering, when Zimbabweans were clamoring for leadership, they were nowhere to be found.
It's clear that we have two main players in this election, President Emmerson Mnangagwa and Nelson Chamisa. Now we want to hear what Acie thinks about Nelson Chamisa. We want to hear what Acie thinks about Nelson Chamisa and what this date means to him.
Okay, so here is the thing. Nelson Chamisa is the president of the only realistic chance of putting up a fight against ZANU-PF. There is no other chance except for Nelson Chamisa. So nobody else has a look in on this fight than Nelson, okay? So what this date does is it does two things for Nelson. Thing number one is it solidifies him as the leading opposition leader in Zimbabwe. That's what it does. Because right now, there is nobody who can come and build an infrastructure, who can come and put enough resources, do enough groundwork to contest President Emmerson Mnangagwa. So it makes him the leading front runner. Good on him. The second thing that this date does for President Nelson Chamisa. Now, this is not really going well for him right now. The second thing it does is, it means he is running out of time to pull the rabbit out of the hat. The only way that Nelson Chamisa gets to even have a chance of putting up a fight is if he's able to build the mother, the daddy of all coalitions. If he does not do this, he can forget about getting a chance to even put up a good fight. Okay? I'm not talking about he will win. I am saying if Nelson Chamisa understands in the next 60 days his single greatest assignment is to figure out how to get rid of the egos around him like Tendai Biti, replace them with assets like Amaimo Juru, build a formidable coalition that involves absolutely everybody. Only then does he have a chance. So what does this mean for Nelson Chamisa? It means you're in the game, baby. You're in the game, Mr. President. What you got to do now is understand, step up to the plate. You've been missing a lot of steps, making some good ones. Step up to the plate, Nelson Chamisa. You will have a solid chance of putting up a fight to President Emmerson Mnangagwa.
Patson, what do you think this means for Nelson Chamisa?
Well, this election, we must understand the context of this election. This is essentially a generational election since 1980. Nelson Chamisa, a 40-year-old, has emboldened our hope as Zimbabweans after his ascension as the leader of the leading opposition party, or should I say the only opposition party, a serious one for that matter, to talk about in Zimbabwe. He emboldened our hopes. He ignited our desire even to participate in national politics as the young people in Zimbabwe. I'm sure even statistics are reflecting or are an attestation of what I'm saying. ZEC statistics, those are the ones I'm referring to. Now, this debt certainly is a watershed debt for Nelson Chamisa and the generation he represents. What generation does Nelson Chamisa represent? Nelson Chamisa represents my generation. Nelson Chamisa represents the generation of young people like me who have been exposed to bastardized leadership all these years. A generation of young people like me who have been exposed to leadership failure all these years. That's what Nelson Chamisa represents. And as such, for all of us, the people Nelson Chamisa represents, this certainly is a watershed debt for us. Why? Because it certainly signals a transition from the old to the new. This election is going to be an election to choose between the bad and the good, to choose between the old and the new. And we all know that as the young people, we're inclining towards the new. We all about the new. There's nothing new a 75-year-old president can bring. We are hoping on the renewed energy and the vigor of a 40-year-old whose name is Nelson Chamisa. So for Nelson Chamisa, it's certainly game on, and this is up for him to take.
Let me help. Again, let me help. See, I like to help Patson, okay? Because Patson is a nice guy. So I want to help Patson, okay? Here is the error that Patson is making, which is false and wrong in his syllogism, okay? The error, the great error that Patson is making is thinking, okay? Thinking. Maybe he should stop thinking completely. Is thinking that just because Nelson Chamisa is 40 years old, he is speaking to a homogeneous voter bloc, okay? Not every under 40-year-old person likes Nelson Chamisa the same way. Not every person who is old likes President Emmerson Mnangagwa. It is foolishness to think that just because you are a certain age, you are going to vote based on your age. You don't vote based on your age. Now, here is what Patson does have right. What he does have right is, yes, Nelson Chamisa comes with him, brings with him a certain energy that hasn't been there for a while. But the trouble with this energy is it's misguided. So you see young people at Emmerson Mnangagwa's rallies, you also see old people there. You see young people at Nelson Chamisa's rallies, you also see old people there. So it's not about the ages. It's not about the ages. It's about what is the issue of consensus. What this means to Nelson Chamisa is you have to find the issue of consensus that people can come around. Robert Mugabe did that when he said land reform, when he said indigenization, when he said job creation. Whether he did it or he didn't, besides the point. But there was an issue of consensus. That is what Nelson Chamisa has to do in the next 60 days. So does President Emmerson Mnangagwa. But the next 60 days are an actual test for Nelson Chamisa. Again, I repeat, in order for Nelson Chamisa to have a chance of putting up a fight, not winning, putting up a fight against the machinery of Emmerson Mnangagwa, he's got to bring everybody in. He is right, my brother. Nelson Chamisa is the only serious candidate to talk about.
If you're just joining us, you're watching Election Playbook, where we're looking at the elections. The president has declared that the elections will be on the 30th of July. And in the studio with me tonight is Acie Lumumba and Patson Dzamara. Patson, do you have a response to Acie?
Yes. We must understand that maturity or efficacy is not measured chronologically. It's measured dimensionally. And so when you're talking about generational consensus, we're not in any way segregating any generation. What we're talking about is what generations represent. And so for you, Acie Lumumba, to try and school me on something that I'm very clear about, that it's never about one's number of days in this world. It's about what one represents. And we're talking about Nelson Chamisa representing a fresh page for Zimbabwe. We're talking about Nelson Chamisa representing fresh energy for Zimbabwe, or to take Zimbabwe forward. That's what we are talking about as the young people. And yes, admittedly, not every young individual certainly loves Nelson Chamisa at the same wavelength. That is impossible, and vice versa. The same can be said about ED regarding all the generations or all the age groups. We are seeing the emergence of a new form and way of doing things in terms of leadership. And that is certainly something that has endeared Nelson Chamisa to the public, to the masses. And you must also look at the statistics. 67% of our population is classified as youth. And those are people who are below the age of 35. And as such, it is pertinent for us to then look at those statistics and see how most of those people are gravitating towards one of their own, one who is representing their aspirations for the future. That's the reason why some people in ZANU-PF, including Emmerson Mnangagwa, they are not even able to understand a simple thing such as a spaghetti road. There's nothing out of this world about that. That is the future we're heading towards. That is where the world is moving towards. But we have people who are dragging us into the past because they represent the past. We must vote. And I know several young people like me are going to vote for who represent the future, and that is none other than Nelson Chamisa.
Highly fascinating stuff. I mean, absolutely pure entertainment that Patson Dzamara just explained. I quote him verbatim. He says, "We are seeing a new type of leadership that does things in a new and different way from Nelson Chamisa." Really? Do you want me to talk about that? Do you really want me to talk about what we are seeing from Nelson Chamisa? I mean, do you really want me to tell you the styles we're seeing from Nelson Chamisa? I mean, Nelson Chamisa right now is like the guy who gets into the nightclub and is from out of town, okay? And he doesn't know that we do the Macarena around here. So he gets in and he tries to do the Ndombolo in the club. And people are like, oh, Ndombolo yagapera baba, marasiga. Now, you are not wrong in saying Nelson Chamisa is young. You are wrong in saying it matters. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you are being led by a young or an old person. It matters that you are being led by somebody who understands where they are trying to take you.
Gentlemen, let's look at these two front runners. What do you think about their plans and their teams? Who do you think has got the best plan and the team? Let's start with Patson for a change.
The man who is representing the future certainly has a better plan. We have two propositions. We have two candidates. Emmerson Mnangagwa, a man who is representing the past. And now let us zoom into our past as Zimbabwe. What does our past reflect? Our past reflects poverty. Our past reflects leadership failure. Our past reflects corruption. Our past reflects a leadership that has pillaged its people. Our past reflects human rights violations. Our past reflects all those austere things. As such, you really cannot convince me or any right-thinking person that the past is representing what is better. Because if you to juxtapose what the past is representing to what the future is representing, the future is representing opportunities. The future is representing the respect of the law, the upholding of human rights, and the sanctity of the Constitution, which is something the past has not represented. And so of the two candidates, certainly, without an ounce of doubt, I can categorically state that Nelson Chamisa is a better candidate, and he certainly has the people around him who know how to move this country forward. Not only that, we must lean back to the fact that Nelson Chamisa and the other people he's working with, even some of the alliance partners, the likes of Professor Washman Nube and Tentai Biti, have had an experience in government. They occupied prominent posts in government during the government of national unity. And so these are not novices. These are people who know how to take this nation forward. These are people who know what they are talking about when they are talking about transformation. They are not just wishing, they are not just dreaming. They know what it takes because they have had a glimpse and they've had an experience in leading Zimbabwe. And we can all attest to the fact that when they joined forces with the dead horses of ZANU-PF in 2009, our fortunes changed.
May I help my brother again? May I help him again? Okay, I want to help him. I also want to help Nelson. Here is the thing. Do I think Nelson is a good candidate? Probably, yeah, I do. Do I think his team is good? No. Here is the problem, Patson. When you say things like Nelson Chamisa has the good or the right team around him, you're setting up your candidate for failure. The very problem with Nelson Chamisa is he does not have a good team around him. How do you know he doesn't have a good team around him? What is the job of the team? To score goals. The team is supposed to be built for purpose. What is the purpose? You need somebody in there who brings you the woman vote. Who is that? You tell me who is that? You need somebody in there who brings you the mature vote. You tell me who is that? You need somebody in there who brings you the international support. You tell me who is that? You need somebody in there who brings the money. You tell me who is that? So his team is exactly the problem. He needs to be able to change his team. People say things like, oh, when Emmerson Mnangagwa came in, he didn't change his cabinet. What did Chamisa change? What did Chamisa come in and change? Who did Chamisa come in and change? Are you kidding me? Now, let me help you understand. President Emmerson Mnangagwa, is he the right candidate? Let's take your argument. Let's say he isn't, okay? Let's say President Emmerson Mnangagwa actually isn't the right candidate. But here is what he has. A good plan and a good team. I'll tell you how you determine that. He's got people around him who some I don't really like, but they are fit for purpose. What does General Chiwenga bring for him? What does he bring? Use your imagination. Think, apply your mind. What does General Chiwenga bring for Emmerson? What does Kemba Mohadi bring for Emmerson? What does Opam Chinguri bring for Emmerson? These people are the pillars that bring the elements that make the vote come together. It's like putting a bolt on. Do I like the team? No. Is it a team that can win him an election? Yeah. That's the difference between these two candidates.
We have heard you, Acie. Let's give Patson a chance to give us his opinion.
Well, admittedly, Emmerson Mnangagwa certainly leans on his power of incumbents. He is the president, and he has state machinery at his disposal. We can never run away from that. But we must understand something. These are the same people who have done all they can to ensure that we are in this abyss as Zimbabwe. And so we are in this quagmire simply because individuals like Chiwenga, individuals like Mohadi have helped build the monster called ZANU-PF. And we know that is our problem. Our problem was never Robert Mugabe. Our problem was and is the monster called ZANU-PF. And so as we move forward, the people of Zimbabwe know what they want. They know that we want, or they want opportunities. They know that they want real change. And they know that problems are not necessarily solved at the same level at which they were created. And so it is really fallacious for anyone to hope or to believe that Emmerson Mnangagwa, who is one of the creators or the chief architects of the problems we are grappling with as a nation, can solve what we are grappling with. And so as we move forward, it is important, it is pertinent for the people of Zimbabwe, and even for the powers that be, to know that Zimbabweans have woken up, Zimbabweans know what they want, and they know that the real change that is going to come, or the real change, the yen for, is going to come through and from Nelson Chamisa and the MDC Alliance. Indeed, he has able people who are willing to support, who are even supporting him without necessarily being members of the party. It just shows that they are ready for change. It just shows that the time for change has arrived. And as one Victor Hugo intoned, there is nothing that's more powerful than an idea whose time has come. Nelson Chamisa is an idea whose time has come. And there's nothing, nobody, absolutely nobody, who can stop Nelson Chamisa.
Thank you, gentlemen. That was an interesting conversation around the elections that are now slated for the 30th of July. That's just 59 days away, and we will be having more similar conversations about our election landscape. In studio with me tonight, I had Patson, Dzamara and Acie Lumumba. I'm Rudo Gunduza. Join me next time. Good night.